Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly.
Well, welcome back to the DCL podcast, your podcast to cruise a little smarter. I'm your host, Lake, and I am not joined by a co-host, another flying solo, but that is okay because I have an exciting itinerary to talk about. We are stepping up to Concierge, but stepping down to the OG, one of my favorites, the ship that has captured my heart, the Disney Magic. And to talk about this sailing, we would like to welcome our guest this week, John. John, how are you today?
I am doing great. Like, how in the world are you?
I am doing pretty good. Excited for this episode. We've had some fun pre-show conversations already, so excited to see where this takes us. Why don't you go ahead and start with, tell us a little bit about your Disney and cruising background.
Yeah, sure. So grew up being a Disney fan, especially the movies and frankly the sing-along videos. I don't know if that resonates with anybody. I wish Disney would bring those back en masse. Not a Disney fanatic, but definitely a Disney fan. Privileged to visit the parks a handful of times growing up. We went to Disney World maybe 3 times, Disneyland once for a night or two. And then my wife, Grace, who traveled with us, she had family in Florida. So her visits were less vacation stays, but were more like one-off day trips for school and that kind of thing. But she went a few times. But really from high school to our 30s, from a travel perspective, we were in a Disney drought until we had a baby moon, our now 2-year-old son. When we found out we were pregnant, we decided that we wanted to go to Disney, to the parks. And so we stayed there for maybe 3 or 4 nights. And yeah, cruising experience, though, that's a totally different story. So Grace had 0 cruising experience. For all practical purposes, I did too, with the exception of when I was a lot younger, think late middle school, early high school. There was a period of life where I was traveling with my family on little 3 nights on the Carnival holiday out of New Orleans. My mom was running a professional medical association at the time, and to drum up interest in those in the CE courses that she was trying to get people to do, they would be hosted on the Carnival holiday. There's a couple of random tidbits that actually the holidays related to Disney Cruise Line. There's some overlap that's kind of wild. I feel like Steve would be the only person beyond myself that would be interested in that. But the point being, holiday was old 30 years ago. And I don't want to bash a decommissioned ship, especially, may she rust in peace. But it was definitely the expectations for cruising were low. And I think every time we went out on one of those sailings, something awful happened. I can remember we got lodged on the Mississippi River levee for 2 days on one of them. And then, tropical storms in the Gulf, you name it. So my impression of cruising was just a wild, you never know what you're going to get. Yeah, you just never know what you're going to get.
All right. And just say it again for our listeners. Who sailed with you on this sailing?
So this is my wife, Grace. It was me, Grace, my mom, grandma. She was on grandma duty, and my now 2-year-old Judah. It was just before his 2nd birthday when we sailed.
And what drew you to trying Disney Cruise Line for the first time?
Honestly, we were looking for a as relaxing as possible vacation with a toddler, which, is basically an oxymoron in almost all contexts. We were thinking about, trying to, go to the parks, Disney World, but that was just way too stressful. We didn't want to open up that can of worms. And there's a bunch of other things that we could have done, but a lot of them kind of involved just basically being, doing the things you usually do at your house. You're just doing them in a different place. We could go to the beach, or we could, all that kind of stuff. So we were looking at cruising, but all that stuff that I said earlier, we just didn't know what to expect. And so, there's so many options. But we knew the Disney product. We knew that Disney had wonderful reviews and raving fans. And so we decided cruising probably makes the most sense because everything is taken care of for you, within reason. Judah has very limited areas in which to get lost in. And so we were just cruising makes the most sense. And if we're going to do Disney, I kind of was the call on this. It didn't really matter to Grace, but we both felt good about the Magic because we didn't want to be overwhelmed with one of the larger ships at first. And honestly, there was just something. I grew up hearing about the magic, never being able to go on the Disney cruise. And it was like, well, yeah, 30 years from then, we're about 30 years after its first sailing, but we figured we'd give it a shot. So.
Awesome. Well, then, you also booked a pretty interesting cabin for your first sailing. What cabin did you book, and what drew you towards choosing this class of stateroom?
Yeah, so we were in 8030, the Walt Suite. Really, it is a kind of a combination of factors. Because we didn't know what to expect, we're kind of like, if we're going to go on a Disney cruise and pay the money that entails, let's just go all out and and budget for it, et cetera, and just have a blast. And we know if that's not enjoyable, then we know that cruising is not for us, and we can just wipe that out of our minds as possible vacation stuff, going forward. But also, it just sounded cool. The perks for Concierge were really compelling whenever we were looking at it. But honestly, it was more of a sleeping thing. Judah is a really light sleeper. And so we were interested in what are some options of giving him his own sleeping space, honestly, coupled with the fact that my mom is extremely claustrophobic randomly. And so we were like, what can we do to make this work? And so, that suite, the layout on the Magic and the Wonder, there's 2 bedrooms, and then there's a sleeping area for grandma. It's kind of in a study area that can be like hard partitioned off. The Magic and the Wonder, and I guess the Dream and the Fantasy, but really the Magic and the Wonder are the only ones where that additional sleeping area has like a hard partition. Like the Dream and the Fantasy, I think, have like curtains for where the other person who's not in a bedroom would sleep. And then on the larger Wish class ships, like the extra area is just kind of open. You're sleeping on the couch or whatever, which isn't that big of a deal. But anyway, we liked the fact that everybody would have their own sleeping space, and it would be super easy for Judah to fall asleep. And then we wouldn't essentially be held hostage in the stateroom once he fell asleep. Like we wouldn't have to tiptoe around anything and possibly wake him up and stuff. So kind of a simple, almost silly reason to do it. But again, we were willing to pay the premium for the flexibility and just, whatever we need to do to have as much of a vacation that's stress-free and relaxing as possible for everybody. Let's try to do that. So that was kind of the main reason behind picking it.
Well, before we even move into the sailing then, were you able to take advantage of the Concierge early booking to secure any activities or anything before you sailed?
Yeah, so that was something that our travel agent, I think a friend of the show actually, Joe Chung, as the Joe Flies, and Reddit, frankly, were really helpful with. Yeah, the way Concierge works is you can send an email to like the shoreside people. I don't remember if it's like a month or 2 before, but essentially you basically can request pretty much anything within reason that you'd like to have in your stateroom, down to the MDR rotation, the main dining room rotation that you want, that kind of thing. And as well as any additional activities. So yeah, we requested cabanas, which we'll get to in a little bit, for Castaway and Lookout. Palo reservations. I think we did a brunch reservation at Palo, and then a dinner reservation at Palo as well. And then we had a spa reservation on our last sea day. That was later on in the cruise. But beyond that, other than the spas, the cabanas, and the Palo reservations, we didn't really reserve anything, really, because Judah's not at the age yet where like the character stuff, needed to be reserved or anything like that.
Well, let's move towards getting you to Florida and on board the ship. How did you get to Port Canaveral? Did you do any pre-stays anywhere?
Yeah, we did. That was another, so kind of mainly strongly motivated by nostalgia, because my mom, who went with us, hadn't been to anything related to Disney in years, since I was a kid. And so the fact that she was going, we wanted to do something a little bit special. But again, we wanted to keep it as stress-free as possible. So there wasn't any Disney park stay, but we did the night before. We flew into MCO and stayed at the Contemporary. And we were up in the Tower Club and one of the suites looking out on the Bay Lake because, and I know this just sounds ridiculous, like saying it out loud, but we've heard through the grapevine that the electrical water pageant is probably going away. And so we wanted to, Mom was just ecstatic that she would get to see that one more time before they potentially, pull that out. But again, all the things that I mentioned previously about sleeping arrangements and stuff, it just made it really easy for Judah to have his own room and sleep, etc. So we were at the Contemporary that first night, and then did not take advantage of Disney transportation, and not really for any reason other than just the flexibility. Like we wanted to go private transport just to make sure that we could keep him on his sleep schedule, like for naps and all that kind of stuff. And the cost was not that big of a deal. So yeah, Contemporary the night before, private transport the next morning to the port.
Do you remember who you booked for that?
Yeah, it was MCO to Port, and Grace would want me to say that it was a good experience. The trip back at the conclusion of the cruise from Port Canaveral back to MCO was great. The drive from the Contemporary to Port Canaveral was a little bit more rough. You don't really have the option, unless you call and know beforehand, to like pick a driver, and the fleet that they use it's kind of like Uber. Like you don't know what kind of vehicle is going to be there, what the size is, the quality of it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so our experience going to the port was pretty rough. The guy was a very aggressive driver, and that's kind of putting it mildly, to the point, like, that my son, who never gets car sick, got car sick to the point of throwing up like everywhere. He absolutely lost everything that was on his inside came on his outside. Right at the point, there's like a curve, like when you're maybe 5 minutes from the port. We got stuck in traffic because our driver was saying it happens sometimes. There's like a bridge or something that was up, and we could see the Disney bus like 2 cars in front of us. And right when he stopped, and again, it had been a wild ride up till that point, like Judah just lost everything, which was just, your mind races, right? As a parent, you're worried about your kid, and then you're thinking like, oh my gosh, if he's sick with a communicable disease, like we may not even be able to get on the boat. So that was just a wild, I'll get more into that, I guess, when we get to the port part. But yeah, that the transportation was getting there was pretty stressful. So
Gotcha. Yeah, that's very unfortunate, but you do make it to the port. And how was your embarkation process?
Embarkation was great. Y'all had a guest on recently that mentioned that there was some tech issues with like checking in, and it was a person who was on the Magic. And I was telling Grace, I think there's a chance that we were on that same cruise, unless the IT issues are kind of a regular thing with DCL. I don't know. But there was some tech issues where like everything that anybody uploaded previously got lost. And so we found that through Concierge, you get the priority boarding or something resembling priority boarding. And that was helpful through the security piece. We got through security really quickly. But then once you got into the main, I don't know the right terminology, with the lobby, like where you go to actually check in before, you go on the gangway into the boat and stuff. We had to wait a while, and there was a lot of people, and it was fine. Like Judah was thrilled. He was, by the way, much better. We got in line. Once we got to the check-in desk, there was no issues other than the usual standard questionnaire. And this is just a pro tip for parents out there. Well, actually, there's not a tip. I'm just going to share, and parents can choose to do with this information what they will. But there's that standard questionnaire which asks you before they let you on the boat, has anyone in your party in the last 24 hours experienced any, blah, 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 blah. And me being a man of integrity, I was like, well, my son just upchucked in this person's car. So I hit yes on that particular one, no on everything else. The Disney guy was great. He didn't even react whenever I sent it. But apparently it shows up for the person checking you in, like right when they click done. Because he was like, all right, like he had got everything, and I could see him click something, and then his eyes just got wide, and he got on his walkie-talkie and started like, being a little bit reserved. And I was like, is everything okay? And he's like, well, there was an answer on one of the questionnaires that, we just kind of have to navigate. So anyway, long story very short, we actually had to talk at the check-in desk with the ship's nurse. Like the nurse was on the line, and she, very polite, super cool, but was like, okay, give me the details. Like, what's going on? Does your child have a fever? Has he thrown up since it happened in the transport over? Does anyone else in your party have symptoms, et cetera, et cetera? And, we told her no. We're like 99% sure it's motion sick, no fever, blah, 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 blah. So she gave us the thumbs up. But we found out later that like she was the gatekeeper. Like if she had any doubts about Judah, then, it would have been just a no-go for obvious reasons. So that was like a massive relief once we got through there. And then, from then on, it was a breeze. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, they take you over to the concierge waiting area, and then you were probably able to board the ship pretty much right away then, right?
Yeah, we actually got on right before like the main boarding started, like right before. And I don't remember why we were cutting it that close, honestly. But yes, yeah, we got in the lounge, went right on the ship. We did the picture thing, right before you get on. As you board the ship, now welcoming so-and-so family. And so that was magical. That was really, really cool. Judah, we had been hyping up going on the big Disney boat for months, and it was just great. I mean, I know those big ships and the newer ships are awesome and cool, but just again, from my background from where we were coming from with almost zero expectations, we were thrilled. Like everybody was thrilled. It was just really cool to walk in there for the first time.
Love it. Well, you board the beautiful Disney Magic. Where do you head first then?
Yeah, so immediately straight to the concierge lunch, which was at the Lumiere's. I don't know if that's where it typically is, but honestly, after all the stress of like getting to the port and all that, it was awesome to just kind of have a place to go where they were giving you food and you could just sit there. And frankly, it was the first time where Grace and I and Grandma were kind of like, oh, this is the cruise experience, because you go into this restaurant, you got a table, you get a menu put in front of you with no prices on it, and like you just kind of, the machine just moves and you're along for the literal ride. And it was, and in the most delightful way possible, not in a bad way. So it was great to just kind of relax. There was one of the concierge reps came over to our table and just got to know us, introduced himself, gave us kind of the lay of the land in terms of the concierge stuff that we needed to be aware of, which was all great. But it was great to just relax and kind of exhale a little bit after the travel there. It was cool to people watch because Lumiere's has those big old round windows on the sides, and we were seated next to one of those. And so Judah was just loving watching all the people dressed up, in Disney-fied things, and concierge lunch. And then immediately after that was done, which was maybe about an hour, we went straight to the stateroom to basically get it napified. And I mean, get it ready for, we got like a little baby monitor and went straight to the stateroom to check that out and just kind of get unpacked and get ready to go. All of our luggage was back. There was one bag that took a little bit longer than other ones. And it was kind of an important bag. It had his little dragon that he always sleeps with. So he had to sleep with one of Daddy's shirts instead, which was really sweet because that in the moment it was fine with him. So that was cool. Daddy points for me. But anyway, yeah, I got settled in the stateroom. Like, man, the stateroom was, I think Grace would agree with this. It was the coolest part of the ship and the coolest part of the trip. And the whole trip was great. That stateroom, I mean, they recently renovated it, I think. Like, that was part of the reason we were interested, like maybe a year ago or whatever. And interestingly, we looked at the Wonders renovations of the same rooms, and it's very different. Like, the Walt and Roy suites on the Magic are way more open. Like, on the Wonder on the Wonder, they still have the kitchen kind of closed off almost, like it's an enclosed room, whereas everything in those two suites on the Magic is all opened up. It is just beautiful. We were shocked. And there's more space than you could possibly need. And yeah, we were just like, wow, we get to spend 5 nights in here. This is great. So that was a super, super massive highlight.
Love it. Well, continuing with the embarkation day then, it sounds like you probably go down for some naps, and after we're up and moving again, where are you headed?
Yeah, let me throw this in there too, just as a parent pro tip. Like, we did not know, and I maybe could have known, but I just didn't have the memory for it. When you're still like in port, like until you actually leave port, some of the announcements that they make on the ship, they're announced in all of the rooms. And we did not know this. And so miraculously, I told you that our son is a very light sleeper. He slept through all of those like muster announcements where the cruise director is on and his hive were so, and just all those like regular announcements. And we were just shocked. Like he slept through all of it. So that was great. So anyway, yeah, after he got up from nap, we mustered in the Disney theater, which was, great, easy, no big deal, no fuss. And then it was almost immediately we wanted to catch the sail away party because we had seen that somebody's YouTube video of a sail away party on the Magic like trillions of times. And so we wanted to make sure that Judah could see that. And so it was great. In hindsight, it was amazing. Grace loved it. Judah loved it. In the moment, it was very hot. Like I was holding Judah and was up, as close to the characters as you could get. And, this was in May. So it was quite warm. But as soon as those characters come out and your kid just starts like, oh, it's Mickey, and starts going, nuts about that, it's totally worth it. So it was good.
Yeah, there's something fun about that. You're officially on vacation and the horns are going and the ship starts moving.
Oh, yeah. No, it was awesome. It was really well done, too. That coupled with that Lumiere's lunch that I mentioned, it was kind of like, okay, no, I love how Disney lets you know and reinforces the vacation has begun, and so that was cool.
Love it. Well, did you do anything between then and I'm going to guess that you were early dining?
Yeah, we were. Yeah, 5:45. Yeah, so from the sail away party, that started at 4-ish. And so and it was a decently long thing. I think after the sail wave, this was another random cool thing. We had no clue. Well, maybe we had a little bit of a clue, but we were really just shocked when we were on the boat and saw how it worked. Yeah, so the Navigator app tells you like where any character that is going to be out and about, where they will be, at what time. And so it made it so easy for us. Like after the sail away party, I think we got in line. We saw that like Mickey or Pluto was going to be somewhere. And so we're like, well, let's go get in line. Say hi to just start saying hi to people. And then it makes it super easy to just kind of jump from one thing to the next for getting we were on the Animators, Rapunzel, Lumiere's, Rapunzel, Animators rotation. So that was really cool too. We were really pumped to have, and obviously we requested it beforehand, but we wanted to kind of do the OG restaurant on the OG ship first and then save like the last, that last thing that they do in there for the last day. It just fit perfectly. But yeah, our experience with the MDRs was awesome. And again, it could just be that we don't have really anything to compare it to, but the food in every dining space was excellent. Like we just loved it. And we loved that we didn't have to, toward the end of the trip, like Grace looked at me and was like, this was the best vacation I've ever been on. And it's almost solely because I don't have to, and me neither. It's not like she's doing all of this, but like we don't have to prepare meals. We don't have to wash the dishes for the meals that we eat. Like we don't have to come up with, what are we going to be doing? Like it's literally everything that you could do is handled for you. And the dining part of that is probably for many of us, it's the thing that takes the most brain power and the most cost, et cetera. So to have all of that taken care of was awesome. And, there's so much to look at in those spaces, like in Animators and especially Rapunzel's and even Lumiere's, which gets a bad rap, or at least we read it. Like I liked Lumiere's a lot, like just because it owns what it is. It's not like, I don't know, like I liked every single one of the dining spaces and all of the food was just spectacular. Waitstaff was good.
For atmosphere of the three restaurants, does one stick out to you as a favorite?
Oh yeah, Rapunzel. Rapunzel, especially for Judah, Rapunzel's Royal Table. Just the theming was really awesome. Like the show, the story arc, the narrative that's going on while you're eating in there was great and funny and cool. Ironically, we had just introduced him to Tangled like 2 weeks before, and so he knew the music that they were playing. And that was another cool thing too, another little concierge perk that we didn't really know was a thing until we, saw it and lived it in action. But you can actually request, like in that initial email I mentioned earlier, like a month out, how close do you want to be the action, or how far away do you want to be from the action? Like when they're looking at where to seat you. And we asked them, to get us close because we've got the little one and stuff. And it was great. Like I say that to say in Rapunzel's in particular, there was so much intentional interaction with our son, like from the cast members, that just made it super, super magical. Like eye contact, and anyway, it was just really, really cool. But Rapunzel's, yeah, that was definitely our favorite. Nothing detracting from Animators. Animators was cool too, but yeah, we really liked Rapunzel's.
Awesome. And was there any particular rotational dining meal of your 5 nights that stuck out to you?
No, they were all delicious. I mean, the standout meal, even at Palo, which was great, the standout, there wasn't anything that I can really remember. I remember the almond croissant at the Palo brunch that we did on Monday morning, so our first morning on the ship. And I remember that chocolate thing that you guys have, everyone's going to be rolling their eyes when they listen to this, but whatever that chocolate thing where they pour the molten chocolate over on. Yeah, but no, nothing really stands out in terms of food. It was all legitimately just, we had no bad meal. We had no meal in one of the main dining rooms where we were like, that was just okay. Like, it was just all great.
Well, let's go ahead and move into Palo then, since we already talked about it a little bit. You did brunch and dinner. How were those meals?
They were great. Yeah, Palo brunch was great. It was cool to kind of go there for the brunch, having never gone before, just to see it like in the daytime, because at night it's a totally different experience. There's a lot of windows in there, so it's just different. You can really kind of see more of what the space is. And I'm kind of a design snob. I like that kind of thing. So that was really, really neat. And we also had, I don't know if Disney usually does this, but we had the same server in Palo for Palo brunch as well as our dinner. So that was really nice. Shout out to Carlos. He was great.
Yep, they will almost always give you the same server if they see you have brunch and dinner. And it really, truly does just enhance that experience usually.
If anyone's wondering, while we were at brunch, that was really Grandma and our son Judah. That was really our only experience, and we didn't even experience it with Cabanas. So Grandma took Judah to Cabanas for like their brunch at that time, just to get some food and stuff. And same deal, like Cabanas is Cabanas. It wasn't anything that was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go on a Disney cruise for Cabanas, but it was great. So, but Grace and I never actually went there. I will say this while we're on the dining thing, just so I don't forget, because this was probably right beneath the stateroom in terms of like awesomeness as far as our family was concerned. We loved the fact that you could get a hot breakfast in your stateroom every morning. And apparently like that's only Concierge. Like any other stateroom, you get the like the regular kind of continental spread. But I mean, the menu for the Concierge staterooms for breakfast in the morning was awesome. Like, I am a creature of habit and wanting, and we kind of have this routine with Judah, like we eat breakfast together. And anyway, they accommodated, like we got our oat milk because we're lactose intolerant, like with our coffee. It was just wonderful. And they brought it all to your room. There's a little dining room in those royal suites there, and they set it up for you. And then they take care of all the dishes once you're done, when you're not there or whatever. But that was starting every morning with breakfast in your stateroom, and it's hot and warm and awesome, was just like, that was also almost worth the entire price. Like, just to be on a boat in the middle of an ocean, being able to eat breakfast every morning, it was great. And it was better breakfast than what I would usually have, which is like, Cliff Bars.
Love it. While we're actually talking about watching Judah, did you utilize the nursery at all?
Yes, we did. So Grandma was there just to have fun and make memories, but also for in the evenings. Like, we wanted her there because we didn't want to just park Judah in the nursery the entire time, there's no problem with that. That just wasn't something that we really wanted to do. But yes, there was at least 4 times where he was in It's a Small World, for a couple hours, just to give Grandma a break or give us a break. And he loved it every time. Granted, it's on the Magic. It's not as like nice and shiny and new as what, the Wish class, It's a Small World Nursery is like, but it was still great. Like, it was really, really great. The cast members were amazing, as you would expect. I think with Concierge, that was that's technically like a service that we could have reserved in advance, but everything that we had read said that really, like, the nursery is not something that gets, sold out. So we didn't reserve anything in advance, honestly, with the exception of maybe the time that we were on our dinner reservation. I don't really remember, but it was super, super easy. As long as there was openings, which there always was, you could just bring your kid over and they already knew who he was. And yeah, the process was super seamless and it was very, very convenient.
Awesome. Well, let's move on and talk about activities around the ship. So when you spent time on the Magic, where did you find yourself going? What activities did you end up doing around?
Yeah, so mainly, I mean, so our typical day was breakfast in the room and then going out and exploring the ship, usually a character greeting, like seeing which characters were going to be available when and getting in line to snap pictures with them. And then splash pad on the pool deck. So Judah was not potty trained at this point. I would hope not, because he's a year old at that time. He was almost 2, so there was no way he was going to be potty trained yet. So we were actually a little bit worried about that. We didn't know how the splash pad was going to go, if he would even care. He loved the splash pad. Splash pad was great. And so splash pad, characters, and then before you know it, it's like usually lunch-ish time. And really, I mean, the only Nassau was the day where we had Palo brunch, and so they went to Cabanas for lunch. Lunch all the other days was on, the islands at Lookout and Castaway. Point being, like, activities on the ship with Judah, it was the Disney characters, the splash pad. He loved that thing. And then once Judah went down, honestly, we found ourselves over at Keys a lot. We really enjoyed Keys. At night, Keys was awesome. I wish I could remember the name of the pianist that they had the entire time, but she was just delightful. And the whole crew in there was great. It was just a super chill vibe, after a busy day, after the Broadway shows and stuff. We didn't go there every night because we were kind of pooped. You are still, parents of a 2-year-old, but it was good for what it was.
Love it. Yeah, I love the adult spaces, and especially Keys on the Magic. It is just a really great and really decent sized space to wind down at the end of the night. Well, you mentioned also seeing the shows. What shows were you able to see on board, and what did you think of them?
So somebody in our party, we got to see all of them. I personally went to the first one on the second night because they don't have any on the embarkation night. So yeah, it was Twice Charmed, Tangled the Musical, and then Disney Dreams on, the last night. But I was able to go to Twice Charmed and Disney Dreams. Grandma and Grace were able to go to Tangled, and they were awesome. That was another thing that Concierge, a perk, you get that early access to the Walt Disney Theater, and we didn't think that would be that big of a deal, but man, that was awesome. Like, you go through Gills, which, by the way, another awesome adult space. I thought that I was the only person on planet Earth who even cared about Darby O'Gill and the Little People. Like, that was a classic Disney movie that I just always thought was the coolest thing. And so to see that as a space on the ship, and that was really cool. Anyway, you go through O'Gill's to get in, like, you go in like behind the screen and come out like the front of the theater. And so you get like 10 minutes to pick your seat. They got a popcorn machine there. They give you popcorn and obviously, drinks or anything that you need. So that was awesome. Just being able to kind of chill and just wait. And then the doors open, everyone comes in. But we love the shows. Honestly, like, Twice Charmed was hilarious. I thought it was really good. I don't remember what I was doing during Tangled. I know I was there with Judah. I think I don't remember what I was doing, but I was just in the stateroom. But they said Tangled was great. And Disney Dreams, of course, we had heard a lot about it, had never seen it, because it's kind of a staple, but that was really great too. And I think Disney Dreams, oh man, I wish Grace was here. I'm 99% sure Judah was with us for Disney Dreams. I think we kept him up for that so he could see that one. But anyway, it was all great.
Judah do okay at that show?
Oh yeah. Yeah, he did fine. You're always kind of nervous about, now again, assuming my mind is not making this entire thing up. You're always nervous about lights and sounds and that kind of thing, but it was no big deal for him. And there was a lot of little kids around his age that were in the theater. That was part of the reason why, we were kind of okay with bringing them in, because we were like, oh, okay, well, if other people think that their kid is going to be fine in these, then he should be. So yeah, it was great.
I got just a couple more questions kind of pertaining to your time on the Magic before we go ahead and start talking about some of these port stops. Grandma, what did she enjoy about the Magic?
Grandma, she would tell you, that's a dumb question, Lake. I love my grandson the most. That was my favorite part. But other than that, she did like a baking class, like where I think she went to Palo and they showed whoever showed up like how to make little dessert pastries or something, which was really cool. And that wasn't anything that was just available in the app, and she saw that. But yeah, she was really, her thing was running around with us with Judah. And then that was part of the reason why Grace and her went to Tangled, so she could have some time. She got to pick whichever show she wanted to go see, and she really wanted to go see that one. She's also kind of a homebody. She loved the space in that Walt Suite over there in that sitting area that they have. They have a Murphy bed in the wall that you pull down, and Disney can keep that pulled down permanently, like for the entire length of the trip. Like that kind of became her space. And, she had access to the balcony, the veranda that runs the length of that thing. And so she loved reading and just hanging out down there if she wasn't on Judah duty or anything. So yeah, that's what she was up to. It was mainly just chasing Judah with us.
Well, any other highlights from Aboard the Magic before we start talking about some islands?
The ease to just hang out and see where those characters would be in the app was just awesome. We love doing that. We never felt like, oh my gosh, if we don't see blank today, then, we won't be able to see him the whole trip. And then you're just kind of stressed. Even kind of random characters, and Stitch wasn't, I guess, random, but Judah loves Stitch. The movie was about to come out in a few months at that time. But even him, like he showed up a bunch, and so all the staples were always available. But that was something that we really appreciated. It was so easy. I mean, especially compared to the parks, like where you basically have to get a Lightning Lane premiere pass if you even want a chance to, see some of these characters. I mean, they're everywhere on the ship, just begging for you to come and say hi. And so that was really great.
Yeah, and sometimes they're in the places you least expect, just roaming around too. And you can have some of the best character interactions on board a DCL ship, for sure. Well, let's go ahead and turn towards some of these islands. So you've got stops in Nassau, Lookout, and Castaway. Did you get off the ship in Nassau?
We did not. No, we did a little bit of research and obviously listened to the podcast and that kind of thing. And we were like, again, Judah, we wanted to keep it as easy peasy as possible. And we're like, all right, on Nassau, we'll just stay on the ship. And especially since that was our first day, like full day, like this is just kind of making the ship feel like home for us, getting used to it. So no, we didn't get off. We had that Palo brunch, then splash pad most of the day with Judah, and then nap, and then Rapunzel's was that night for the first time, which was awesome. So yeah, no Nassau comments.
Well, let's turn it towards Lookout then, Disney's newest private island experience. What did you get up to on this day?
So we were super excited and remained excited about Lookout. We got a cabana, and so that was really cool. The whole idea, we actually requested cabanas for Lookout and Castaway. And our plan was, since we had budgeted for it, we were like, maybe Judah will be able to take a nap on the beach if we had a cabana, as opposed to just not having one and being on the beach like normal. Like the odds of us being able to stay out on the beach all day, like for as long as we could, might go up if we had these cabanas. So went ahead and bit the bullet, got them. So before that, let me just say, yeah, the walkway was a little bit rough. I'm still not sold. I know why they have the long pier to walk, and I know the purpose, and that's all great. But that I didn't really enjoy that much. That kind of made Castaway my favorite, honestly, just because everything is so close and so easy to get to. But I don't want to jump ahead. But Lookout was beautiful. Lookout was just, it's like a Caribbean island, because it is, and the water was amazing. The only thing, some people have mentioned this, and this was true at Castaway too, but I noticed that on the beaches, at least where we were, it seemed really rocky in terms of it would look like sugar soft sand. And then if you went out a ways, you just better be watching your toes. So we kind of decided and made a mental note etched in our minds, like if we do this again, which we hope to, we're bringing water shoes, like if we go out there, just to kind of,
Was your cabana like closer to the walkway pier, or were you further down?
Further down. So we were 8 on Lookout, and we were cabana 8 at Castaway 2. And that was on purpose. We scoured the maps just to kind of see the proximity to food. And also in particular with Lookout, some of those cabanas are on the rock. The beach is kind of rocky. And we knew that going in. And so 8 is actually further. it was very, very fine sand and stuff. But even with that, like there's some rock just by nature of the fact that they're trying to keep things, I imagine, as natural as possible, et cetera, et cetera. Like, you can't find everything. And so there were some boulders and some coral, whatever they were. There was some stuff buried in there that we're taking water shoes next time. But yeah, so Lookout itself, the process of getting to the cabana was really easy. Pretty sure the way Lookout is laid out, we did not have to ride a tram or anything. Like we didn't get on the main tram to the main part of the island because the family cabanas, not the Serenity ones, are right there. And so there was still maybe like a little tram, like a little bitty golf cart that took us from that point once you got across the pier to like where we were, and that was great. The cabana was beautiful. I mean, it's basically brand new for all intents and purposes. But flash forward, there was absolutely, we realized very quickly, there was no way in heck that Judah was going to be going to sleep. He was too excited. And, the ocean, like we were thinking like, he would be lulled, to a wonderful sleep with the, waves lapping in the background. No, didn't happen. They do have, and this is part of the reason, like they've got like some partition. I think at Lookout, it was actually a wooden, like it's a changing area. And then at Castaway, it was like basically a corner with like a shower curtain. I'm not trying to make fun of it, and so we requested a pack and play to be in there. And so both times there was a pack and play there in that area. And so we were hoping it would be chill enough for him, but didn't end up happening. Still, cabana was great. We had food. Food is able to be delivered to those, but the cabana 8 on Lookout was pretty close enough for us to walk to if we wanted to. And of course, it's stocked with all the stuff you could possibly need. You don't, in terms of drinks and snacks and stuff, there's not, it was all taken care of, and running water, music if you wanted it, all of that stuff. So that was really, really cool. We got spoiled. And I don't know, we probably at Lookout wouldn't do it again just because it's a little bit more expensive, and Lookout is more spaced out. Like we feel like we could probably a whole lot easier find, a place to chill at Lookout. Whereas Castaway is still a little bit smaller. And especially if we were on something like the Destiny or the Treasure, one of those Wish class ships, if a cabana's in the budget and we could swing it, then we would probably want to do that at Castaway again. I don't know about Lookout though.
Were you able to stay out there as long as you had hoped since your son didn't get a nap?
Yeah, we were able to stay out a little bit. Honestly, it was cut off. Me and Grandma were able to stay out for a good bit longer. Grace took Judah back to take a nap, but that wasn't as big of a deal because on our particular day, the surf was, according to the lifeguards, too rough to go out beyond knee deep. And I would say that's a little bit of something for people to be aware of if they're not already. Disney's definition of rough water is not rough, and I'm not bashing them. I'm just saying, like, if you're from a place where like the Gulf Coast or Atlantic, like what they consider rough, and maybe it was just it's under the surface, and they knew that there was a strong undertow that was not visible on the top. But it seemed like, man, like if this is knee deep water, like are we ever going to be able to get in? And flash forward, we were like the water chilled out a little bit. In fact, we had one of the concierge reps come by the cabana, and she was super apologetic. We hadn't complained or anything like that, but she was like, we're really sorry, like this usually doesn't happen. We've got a tram available for y'all, for everybody that had a cabana, to take you over to the other side of the island if you wanted to get in the water over there because it's open. So that being said, I say that to say those cabanas, the family cabanas at Lookout, because they are facing more open ocean, I guess, than the other side of the island, the chance of the water being closed off is a little bit higher, I think, than what it might be on the other side, or even the Serenity, wherever the Serenity cabanas are. So yeah, me and Grandma were able to chill out. Unfortunately, because Judah needed to go back, he wasn't old enough really anyway to enjoy Rush Out, Gush Out, or any of that cool stuff. We did get the food. We had lunch there, and we thought the food was great. We remembered all of the talk whenever Lookout first opened about flies. We had zero issues with bugs, critters, etc. Zero issues with seeing, crabs on the tramways. We've heard about that and stuff too. It was really delightful. It was hot, but it was delightful.
Awesome. Well, let's move towards the OG island, Castaway, which it sounds like you had a pretty good day from what you have hinted at already.
I feel like I should add, Grace would be mad if I didn't, and you can edit this out if not, but one big, massive, plus awesome thing at Lookout was Junkanoo. So before Judah went back to the ship, we took the tram to the main part of the island and got to see that. It was awesome. It's very Mardi Gras-esque, being from Louisiana. That's where we're from. So that was just really cool to see, the parade and see the characters and just kind of the culture come alive. So yeah, that was worth the trip almost to the island in and of itself. It was really great. So yeah, OG Castaway, hands down my favorite. Honestly, for me, Castaway takes the cake. Lookout is beautiful. It's newer, but I am a Disney guy, I guess, and just the size of Castaway versus Lookout and just how convenient everything is in terms of proximity to the ship, to getting to the places that you want to go. It was just so much easier. Like, it felt easier. Maybe it wasn't actually easier. It just felt easier. But we loved it. We had a cabana again, cabana number 8, same thing, a little bit older, I guess, but it was just more delightful. It felt more Disney-fied, but also like, I don't know how to describe it. It was just great. Like, the cabana felt like you were in, I don't know, like a cabana on the Jungle Cruise in the parks or something. Like, it was cool. Like, you were kind of stepping into a beach scene that only Disney could make. And, the ship is off, right there in your sight line, which is great. And then the proximity to the food was really, really cool. And also, honestly, mainly, I guess, because Castaway is more artificial. I don't know the word to use for it, but the water was just a way calmer where the cabanas were. And I guess where everything is, because it's all the same water. The water was just way calmer than it was at Lookout. And so Judah just really took to swimming and having a great time more at Castaway than he did at Lookout. Like, Lookout, I mean, it was like, notwithstanding what I said about the lifeguard having the knee-deep restriction, even with the knee-deep restriction, the waves were still more intense, whereas Castaway was more like a bay, just kind of like the water was chill, and, he loved it. Judah just was ecstatic with it. Food was wonderful at Castaway. We took him to, there is a splash pad at Castaway that we took him to. I don't remember why we didn't get a chance to do that at Lookout, but the splash pad at Castaway was great. Judah had a wonderful time. Yeah, so it was just delightful. We loved all the Disney theming, the heavy kind of Disney theming. Yeah, we loved it.
I was going to ask you this before, but you already answered. It sounds like Castaway is your favorite between the two.
It is. Yeah, it is. It's, and I would dare to say Grace wouldn't agree with me. Joe definitely wouldn't agree with me. Who knows who wouldn't agree. But I would say it's not really close. Like, Lookout is beautiful and it's new. But again, just from the perspective of wanting a vacation and wanting to chill and not have to worry about how long is it going to take me from get to point A to point B, everything is just so close in Castaway. You can just chill out more, I feel like, personally. So yeah, definitely Castaway for me. Grace would probably say it was a tie if she was here. So
I feel like Castaway, you get a more curated experience, maybe a more consistent experience out of it. And it is charming. It is so well themed and so well done. We love Castaway.
And I will say this too, having the 2-year-old, I think changes it. If it was just Grace and I, like pre-kid or even without a kid, all the stuff at Lookout that a lot of people talk about, like the trails and all the things that you could do extracurricularly that don't involve being on a beach, we weren't able to do that. And so if we had been able to do that or chose to and did something else with Judah, I guess I would be changing my tune because, that's a huge part of the appeal for Lookout for a lot of people. So anyway, full disclosure.
Well, anything else about the trip in general before we move into disembarkation, sadly?
The sea day was great. Our last sea day on Thursday, before getting back. So that was really fun to have time on the ocean before because you immediately, with this itinerary, you're at a port the next day. You kind of don't get that vibe of being on the move, except, in the evenings when you're traveling port to port. So that was really fun. I guess this was kind of for, whenever we were talking about the ship in general, but that sea day was when we walked around that promenade on the Magic, like more than we had ever done. We did it once and we're like, that was awesome. So that was a blast. We did that with Judah too. He just thought it was amazing getting to go kind of inside, the ship and, see all that anchor stuff that they've got in the front part of it. For those that have been on it, that was just really, really neat. And then we also did like a spa thing at Senses on that sea day, which was cool. Probably wouldn't do that again. Not because it was bad or we had a bad experience, but just, it's a spa. A spa is a spa is a spa. It wasn't like amazing. Yeah, I would say, honestly, that promenade, man, on the Magic. Once we walked around that one time, we were just like, this is awesome. And so we would go get like a drink, and then we would go back out and just kind of stop and like, look at the water and sit. They've got chairs all around that thing on that deck, and you can just, I mean, why do you even need a veranda if you can go down on that deck and just watch? I mean, it was awesome.
And they're like the comfiest chairs on the ship.
Yeah. Seriously, like it was fantastic. That was a perfect end to it, and then Dreams, having closing out stuff with the Disney Dreams show was really fun. They did have one this is kind of random trivia. You can edit this out if you want to, but they had on Pirate Night, which was the night before that. So that was Castaway Night on Wednesday. They had some electrical problem. Like that was when we were at Palos, Grace and I were, and Grandma and Judah went to Rapunzel's for the MDR by themselves for the Pirate Night version. And the power went out in Rapunzel's, like completely out. Like there was like emergency lighting, and we didn't have any issues in Palo. Like, so I guess it was just a specific thing of the ship, but that kind of like they had music going like for Pirate Night, but when the power came back on, it was the normal Rapunzel's music. And so it was a little bit weird. Like all of the theming kind of went away. I say that to say, I bring it up. We were kind of worried because right before this sailing was when the Magic had a really kind of a big issue with a leak in the chandelier, and that's kind of putting it mildly. Like there was some leak from the pool on the top, and it was coming down to the main hall area, and everyone was like, oh my gosh. And so we were like, man, like we were a little bit nervous, like right before we were going, like, is this ship going to be fine? And it was totally fine. And the only issue, like mechanical wise, that actually came up was that one electrical thing and Rapunzel's that one night. So
sadly, we move into disembarkation. How was that process for your family, and how did you get home?
Yeah, again, with Concierge, it was pretty awesome. So just like everybody else, there's no hot breakfast on that debarkation day, even for Concierge, but it was still nice having the continental spread in the room beforehand. And then so what we did was we kind of I think we checked one bag and kept more luggage, which if we had not had the perks of Concierge in terms of like being able to disembark really whenever we wanted up until like you had to get off the ship, that would have been a nightmare. Like we had a little bit too much luggage, I think, but it didn't end up being a big deal at all just because Concierge makes all of the embarkation and edition so easy. So anyway, we had that continental breakfast in the room and got everything that we were carrying with us kind of together. And then we made our way up to the lounge, the Concierge lounge, which we actually haven't talked about yet, but that's beautiful and renovated too. We didn't spend a lot of time in there just because we like the ship, but it was great for what it is, just getting some random snacks and stuff at the time. But anyway, on debarkation day, we hung out in the lounge for a while. I think we went down to the Cove, and I should have mentioned this too before. We were in the Cove for coffee, not all the time, but that was a regular haunt for us. It was awesome. Like the Cove is great. I wish the Cove was a chain in America that you could go to all the time. Anyway, so we got coffee from the Cove and just hung out in the lounge right until like 20 minutes, 15 minutes before like everybody had to be off the ship. And, Concierge wasn't pushy about it. It was fine. There was actually a number of people that was in the lounge. And then, Concierge has got like a dedicated elevator to take you right down to the debarkation thing. And so when we were ready to go, no one was asking us. Like we went to the elevator, went down, got off the ship, and it was just seamless. And then our private transportation, the MCO to port, we had previously asked, to have a different driver to go back to MCO. And sure enough, there was a different driver, totally different vehicle. And it was just super easy. There wasn't any issues whatsoever on the debark other than it being, sad. And
always sad. But fortunately, we don't have to stop talking about your cruise because I have a couple more questions for you. First off, did your family utilize the photo package at all?
Yeah, we did. We purchased whatever the thing is that you get in advance. And I should have actually asked Grace about this, but yeah, we purchased the thing that you can purchase in advance. And then we ended up buying the digitals. We didn't go to the shop that's there on the ship and get something framed or something special, but we got like the digital copies of a bunch of the ones that are snapped of you, periodically. And that was great for us. I mean, we're there for a vacation with our 2-year-old. Making memories was a part of it. And so we were like, yeah, we definitely want to do that. And we thought the pictures were great. That was really important for us to be able to capture those memories.
Awesome. What is something you know now that you wish you knew before the sailing?
Ooh, I think what I know now that I wish I knew before, it didn't end up being a big deal, but I wish we had known that those muster announcements and like all of the announcements on the ship on embarkation day were going to be piped into the staterooms like that. I wish, it would have been nice to be able to plan that around Judah, but in hindsight, I'm actually kind of glad we didn't know about it because there wouldn't have been anything we could have done about it anyway. So
is there anything that you missed out on that's a must do for next time?
I honestly, the biggest miss out I feel like was rush out, gush out. Like I was really excited about being able to do that at Lookout, but it just, there wasn't any reason to go over there with Judah, like given everything. So he is now well on his way to being a 3 going on 40-year-old. So we should be able to hit that up next time. So I'm excited to spend like some more time doing the more older stuff, even for older kids and, older adult stuff at Lookout, taking advantage of that the next time we go.
Well, you certainly went big with Concierge and the Walt Disney Suite on the sailing. Do you feel like for future sailings, that's the way you have to go now? Like, do you feel like you're locked into Concierge and the Suite style, or are you tempted to try something different in the future?
I mean, if it's in the budget, then we would do it every time. I mean, Concierge in general, regardless of if you're in a Royal Suite or not. Like I would tell anybody who's considering a Disney cruise, the perks for Concierge, it is more expensive, but for us, like it was awesome. Like the perks were really legit, and we felt like they were a good value, like for what you were getting, just in terms of convenience and flexibility. No, I don't think we felt like we have to do that, especially if, we're looking at a treasure sailing. There's no way, at least for us and our family, we're not doing a Royal Suite treatment on there. But I think it definitely opened our eyes being the first trip on Disney Cruise Line. Like the Disney bar is high. It doesn't matter if you're an interior cabin or Concierge, like you're going to be treated right. And so, no, we don't feel like we have to do that again. But it definitely... Again, if we can budget it, like we would want to do that every time. We were talking about, and I think the next question might be, what's the next thing on your Disney cruise radar, if anything? And we're looking at this coming spring, if things align. We're looking at either doing the 4-night Wish sailing or Destiny. We're even thinking about, I mentioned to Grace that the DCL podcast has got a pretty sweet, cruise going on in July on the Destiny. So that's what we're looking at if we're going to do it again. And then there's a good chance we will, because our trip, that vacation on the Magic in May was great.
Well, we would certainly love to have you and your family join us in July for our podcast cruise. But no matter what you pick, you will have a fantastic cruise. And I do love the point you made that regardless of whether you are Concierge or non-concierge, there is such a high level of service on board Disney Cruise Line. That is what has made me reluctant to sail other cruise lines. While I do and have, I still find myself usually wishing I was on Disney Cruise Line.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, John, thank you so much for sharing you and your family's first Disney cruise with us.
It's a pleasure, man. It's always a blast. So glad to be a part of the show. Blessings on everything going forward.
Well, John, thank you again so much for coming on the show. That is gonna wrap up this episode. As always, you can follow Christy at Pack Your Pixie Dust, and if you want to utilize her travel services, hit the link down below that says Book with Christy. You can follow myself at MouseGen on Instagram and YouTube, and you can follow the podcast at DCL Podcast on Instagram and Facebook, and find more information at dclpodcast.com. But that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you all so much for listening, and we will see you next time on DCL Podcast. Bye, guys. Well, it's going to wrap up the show. Once again, we want to thank John for coming on and sharing his family's adventures on the Disney Magic. If you're enjoying the show, we greatly appreciate you leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. We'd also like to thank our Patreons who help make this show happen each and every week for us. You too can help support the show by visiting us at patreon.com/DCL Podcast. Whether you're boarding a cruise, enjoying a trip to the parks, or adventuring outside of Disney, on behalf of myself, Christy, and Steve, we want to wish you smooth sailing and safe travels. We'll see you next time on the DCL Podcast.
The DCL Podcast is not affiliated with the Disney Cruise Line, Walt Disney Company, Adventures by Disney, or Run Disney. All of the opinions expressed on our shows are those of the hosts and the guests who appear on the show. If you have any questions about any of these products, please contact the Walt Disney Company.